line. So we really want to include this as a measure toward the justice and economic transformation that we really need. In order to start us off, I would like to thank Ruth Miller for offering to provide the land acknowledgement for us this evening. And first of all, my name is Pam Miller. I'm calling in from Dena'ina lands. And I would just also like to invite each of you to introduce yourself in the chat and include your name and the traditional lands that you're calling in from, and maybe just a thought or an idea about the discussion that we're having this evening. So again, thank you and welcome so much. And Ruth, to you.
Dena'ina, everyone. Welcome in Dena'ina. Shvak isan iji Dena'ina kanagash kun kanashtu chakayang esnanish ite. Takay kak shugu yasturach u chikinek halikiriki chikinek yatel hinad bagut yachli et sette. For those who don't know me, my name is Ruth Miller. My Dena'ina name is Shvak Isan, and my family is from the Lake Clark area. But I grew up here in our beautiful, sunny, traditional homelands in Dakayekak, otherwise known as Anchorage. And I would invite all of you, if you'd like to close your eyes, if that makes you feel comfortable, if you'd like to put your shoulders down, if that feels good, just to take a moment. This is such a precious time. And I will admit that as we center ourselves, as we just take a couple deep breaths, I know that I have been so desperately awaiting springtime. I know that the breakup season, the gray, the cloudiness has been weighing so much on me. I've been so eager to see our lands alive here, to know that the fish are running. And so let's just take a second to breathe in gratitude for these beautiful lands, the Eshnena here, the Mishni, the water, the Eshnena, the land that provides for us, that gives us nourishment, that gives us sunshine and clean air to breathe. We are so grateful. I am so grateful to the stewardship of 30,000 years of my ancestry caring for these lands. And I'm so grateful to all of you who are here in good spirit and a good way to build loving relationships with this place. And so today I'm breathing in gratitude for our springtime sun, bringing in gratitude for the herring eggs that I got to snack on all week, and gratitude for all of you to know that those who have chosen Alaska as a home here are determined to gather and to treat it well. So Chukanik, thank you all for being here.
Ruth, thank you so much for that beautiful acknowledgement and remembrance and gratitude for the lands, the waters, and the air that we breathe, the returning migratory birds, the animals of the land, and I'm grateful also to all of you. So thank you, Ruth. So I put some just agreements for our discussion this evening into the chat. I think you can read them, but I think the really most important ones are to be present with each other and to respect each other's opinion and be kind, be willing to learn and unlearn. And we're all learning here together today. So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all of you being here, and thank you again so much. I'm just going to give a little bit of background. This fireside chat is really designed to be an informal gathering, like we're pretending that we're gathering around a fire and having a good conversation with one another. But I want to give a little bit of background, and then we have some experts who are going to offer some of their perspectives on this topic of branch number 7 of the Thrive Agenda and share some information about their work, their hopes and dreams. But just a little bit about the Alaska Just Transition Collective. This is a sprouting, and I'm using this as a spring analogy, collective of some Alaska-based organizations that are working to support a path toward a post-fossil fuel economy and toward an indigenized regenerative economy. That's really what we're all working toward, and I think this is what this conversation is about today. Some of the groups that have been a part of this, at least initially to start, include the Alaska Poor People's Campaign, Native Movement, Native People's Action, Fairbanks Climate Action Coalition, Alaska Public Interest Research Group, Alaska Center, and Alaska Community Action on Toxics. But we really want this to be inclusive of all of you and to build this movement together. and to recognize that this is our time to thrive here in Alaska and really figure out how we can all work together toward a just transition. So the fireside chats are really conversations, listening sessions to brainstorm ideas, share thoughts about how we can work together to ensure a just transition and to support the Thrive agenda. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that, as well as the Green New Deal here in Alaska, and to support a transformational recovery in a future without dependence on fossil fuels and polluting industries, and to assure justice, protect the climate, provide good jobs and safe, healthy workplaces and communities. So I'm just going to share a little bit about the Thrive Act, and I really also want to welcome Ruth to chime in here too, because she is our liaison to the national movement, which is really an impressive group of organizations and individuals working together across the country for this. So Ruth, I'll just open this up a little bit and then just really, of course, welcome you to say more. But really the Thrive Act gives us what I think and a lot of people consider a once in a generation chance for our Congress to pass a transformational economic recovery package that can provide millions of jobs and for people and families to live and work in sustaining jobs across the economy, from care work to manufacturing, to cut climate pollution, and to advance gender, environmental, indigenous, and economic justice for everyone, and for racial justice, and with particular attention toward racial justice for Black and Indigenous peoples. So this is called the Thrive Act, and it's a blueprint for economic renewal. And there are several parts of it and these pillars that we're having these conversations around. There are 8 pillars, but the Thrive Act is really authorizing an investment of at least $1 trillion a year for new economic revitalization, honoring the leadership of frontline communities, investments, really profound investments that take on injustice, pollution, and joblessness, and to fight poverty, respecting and honoring Indigenous sovereignty, and with at least 50% of these investments going to frontline communities. Ensuring, and what we're about tonight is talking about workers and worker equity. So this would provide for strong labor equity and environmental standards that protect the health and safety of workers across all sectors. So it's really a tremendous and visionary package that we feel is important for all of us to work toward. And it has been introduced in Congress. And I just wanted to ask Ruth to say a little bit more, to provide some background about this and what is happening really at the national level as well.
Sure. Chicken Pam, honestly, I think that was such a beautiful explanation, much more articulate than I could ever describe. The Thrive Agenda is really a moment, and I know many folks must be, wondering what made this one piece of legislation so unique or remarkable that the Just Transition would decide to partner in this way on a piece of national legislation in a way that we haven't before. And really, when we were approached by the multitudes of national organizations, I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of organizations across the US working towards just transition, we realized that what was being offered to us was a collective moment, particularly in a COVID recovery, in a moment of racial reckoning, yet another moment. At this time that must be transformational, we realized that this is an opportunity to create not just Band-Aid solutions, but real structural interrogations that can get to the root causes of the systemic inequalities that our peoples and our communities have suffered. And so the Thrive Agenda is an aligned collaboration between hundreds of thousands of organizations across all 50 states, working together to pull the next recovery packages a little bit farther to what we need, what we know we need, and not just the minimum of what we think we can get. And so the Just Transition Collective saw in this alignment in the work that all of us have been doing for honestly decades. So really, we wanted to ensure that the Thrive Agenda and the approaches that these national cooperatives were taking were in alignment with the base building, the power building, and the core of who we are that's been active in Alaska for so long. And so it's for this reason that we realized more than anything, we wanted to hear from our community about what you all think of a prospect like this. The Thrive Agenda has 8 pillars as represented in the act itself, which I can drop the specific text for the policy wonks who are interested in seeing that. And we created this kind of talk back listening experience for all of us to just, kind of gather around and chat a little bit, maybe grab some tea or sit in front of a fire the way that we wish we could gather in person, to think about how to uplift our leadership as Alaskan community members, as the ones on the ground doing the real work, and to ensure that we can see ourselves in this national legislation. And if we can't, decide how we want to change it. And so I'm really, I've been so blessed to be able to be part of these conversations. And it's just really exciting to get people together and talking to each other again. So I won't talk anymore. I've been talking too much already. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts. And for those watching on Facebook, drop thoughts in the comments, get involved, drop your email if you want to be more engaged. There'll be many opportunities. We've been saying and reminding us, the organizers, that, we're just planting some little seeds together, and hopefully these conversations will really continue to blossom over years, because we're all intertwined. Our roots are deeply connected, and we're all here for each other.
Thank you again, Ruth. That was really helpful. So this evening, we're here to talk about Pillar 7 of the Thrive Agenda to ensure fairness for workers and communities affected by economic transition. And right now, the vision within the Thrive Act is to direct investments to support displaced workers, to provide housing assistance, fully funded pensions, as well as crisis and trauma and early retirement support, skills training, education, equitable job placement. So all of these things are really envisioned to be part of the Thrive Agenda right now, Pillar 7, or as we like to say, Branch 7. Also, the directing of funds to cover local budget shortfalls, economic diversification, addressing historic injustices. So there are many things that are envisioned to be part of this. But again, I think what Ruth said is this is really about seeing ourselves in this national legislation and figuring out not only what it means, but what our vision is for achieving the Thrive Agenda here in Alaska. So in order to start us off, before I do that, I want to say a brief thing about the work of Alaska Community Action on Toxics, which is my organization based here in Anchorage, but we work statewide. And we get so many calls from workers who have been chemically injured. These are workers who work in different industries like the oil and gas and mining industry, in military jobs. We've worked with the Amchitka workers who were exposed to radiation during the nuclear tests on Amchitka. We've worked with many workers who were exposed to dangerous chemicals and oil during the cleanup of the Exxon Valdez oil spill that continues to cause suffering and death from that experience that was in 1989. So a lot of the work that we do focuses on assisting chemically injured workers and to prevent those injuries and to ensure that workplaces are safe and healthy for everyone. So that's kind of where we come into this with regard to worker health and safety issues. But I'd really like to now turn it over to some of the people that I invited to be a part of this conversation, because I just so much wanted to hear their perspectives. And I'd like to first invite Marvin Jones with Unite Here Now Local 878. And And I've been so impressed with Unite Here Now and their work to ensure the health and safety of workers. We had a chance to work with them on a mold ordinance here in Anchorage, which presented a real threat to the health of workers here in local hotels. But the union has done so much to provide food and insurance through this COVID pandemic, and I'm very excited to hear from you, Marvin. So welcome and thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this. Yeah, I would say that pre-pandemic, we were having health challenges in our hotel, through our hotels with mold issues, and so we had mold and asbestos, and even lead issues in some of our hotels, where we actually got the first ordinance passed through the assembly to help protect workers who would be exposed to mold in hotels. And so trying to create some type of safety rules and regulations in place, because OSHA was not something that really covered that. And so we were able to get the assembly to pass some safety legislation for the workers in the hotels. And then we come to a pandemic. And so obviously representing workers in the hospitality industry throughout Alaska was catastrophic for us, being probably the second or third largest industry, tourism in the state. We were devastated, and we were down to probably to about 5% of our workers, of our members working. And that was even nationally. Out of 600,000 members across the country, we had about 5% of our members working. And so with that, we immediately wanted to protect our members. I recall the first case of someone being affected. I was out of the state, and I got a phone call that at the Sheraton Hotel, one of the pilots had symptoms of COVID. And at that point, that was in March, and at that point, everything shut down immediately. The convention center and everything snowballed from there. One of the first things we wanted to do was make sure that our workers were protected, because we found out later that several of the hotels were being used to quarantine workers, especially when it started getting close to the summer. We knew that those workers were going to be housed here in Anchorage and then going down to Seward to work in the canneries. And workers were not informed that parts of the hotels were being used to quarantine workers. We also needed to make sure that things were in place, such as sanitation lotion, social distancing, people being reminded to wash their hands frequently, all the things that were put in place by the CDC to protect the workers. And very few of the hotels were practicing these safety mechanisms. And so we were we got with assembly members such as Forrest Dunbar and Felix Rivera, who helped move some type of, not quite legislation, but made it aware that we needed to step up our game to make sure that these workers were safe in the hotels. And we're very successful in making that happen. And so with that there, I mean, it's always been our mission to keep our workers safe. As Pam stated earlier, being with us, and it was a big issue with the mold. We had several members become sick working at the Hilton Hotel with the mold issue, and it just carried over with the pandemic, trying to ensure that workers were safe. And when we went and inspected some hotels, it was pretty astonishing in a place as the size of some of the hotels. You look at what we call the big three: Sheraton, Hilton, Captain Cook, that you walk into the break room and there was no sign of social distancing. There was nowhere for workers. There was no sanitation lotion. The soap dishes were empty. It was just no mask, no gloves being handed out. It was just none of the things to protect workers, or even the the transients that would come through in and out of the hotel to protect them. And so we were on the, I like to feel that we was on the ground, making sure that those things happened. And with that, you know, we knew that our workers being out of work, and this is their only way of survival, they were going to need help outside of the hotel, such as rental assistance, food assistance, utility assistance. And we worked on that with a couple of committees with the mayor's office and also the governor's office. So it's still a concern. I'm happy that this organization or this group here is talking about these things, because it's going to affect not just the people that I represent, but our community also. And so hopefully more and more conversations like this happen, and hopefully that we can pass legislation or some laws that will assist us down the road.
Thank you, Marvin. I just have a question, and we'll have plenty of time for discussion, but what do you see in terms of what workers need for recovery, and then a future that you envision for the health and safety and justice for the workers in the union?
You know, I always said that it's a unique situation, because, you know, everyone, it's a hotel, it's a wall, and no one knows what's going on behind those walls. Yeah. And so whether it's workers having an overload of work, being pushed to do more than they're physically capable of doing, whether they're working around hazardous chemicals, these are things that are a continuous situation that's always there. That's an issue for us. Making the public aware of the trials and tribulations that they go through in the hotels, I think, is the first step, because people are not aware of what's happening behind those walls. No one, until we exposed that, knew that workers were working around mold and lead and asbestos. Because employers do construction work and open up those walls and don't notify anybody. And so now they're exposed to asbestos. And so it is our job to make sure that the public is aware of that, so we can protect you know, our members and our community. So I just hope that in the future, that right now, that in the midst of this pandemic, that people are still aware that there's a lot of healing need to happen economically and mentally, because we've had several members who definitely are suffering emotionally from lack of work. They've been in this industry for over 3 decades, and it's the first time they ever been out of work. So this is something that they're really having trouble adapting to, and I think that's the thing that no one has addressed. What's going to be the emotional effect of this once we start to get out of this? There's going to be a lot of people trying to get past this, where they're staying at home and being isolated and those types of things. So, I mean, I had a couple of issues myself, working from home and not having that relationship with the members. I would say once this is, you know, it gets to some point, I'm going to need some counseling myself. So I just think those types of things are things I hope that we look at.
Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now I'd like to turn it over to Justina Beam with the Alaska Poor People's Campaign. And I just love the mission of the Poor People's Campaign, which is a call for moral revival, uniting people across Alaska to challenge the evils of systemic racism, poverty, the war economy, ecological devastation, and the nation's distorted morality of religious nationalism. That's just such a great mission. And Justina, I so admire your work. So I'm very excited also to hear about the work of the Poor People's Campaign here in Alaska and your vision for this Thrive agenda.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to this Fireside Chat. And, you know, it's an honor to be a part of the Just Transition Collective. You know, my name is Justina Beam. I'm the Director of Programming for Alaska Poor People's Campaign. So yes, our organization is dedicated to fighting the evils of systemic racism, poverty, ecological devastation, the distorted moral narrative. But here locally, we do things slightly different than the national campaign and then what other chapters do. So our organization, we serve communities that have historically been denied involvement in like mainstream economic and social, cultural, political activities in Anchorage, Alaska, and then beyond that. I think what I would like to see and what we promote as an organization is to make sure that that we offer collaborative, bottom-up, community-based efforts that build power of people who have the least access to opportunities. And so one of the ways we do that is by creating platforms and helping to develop and cultivate lived experience leadership. I think that it's important that whatever solutions, whatever statewide and local solutions that we implement must come from communities that are underserved. And so that's young people and young adults, Black, Indigenous communities. These are communities that are usually containers of inequity, and have, lots of disparities. And so one of the ways that we do this, we recognize that opportunities for social change, education, and development activities are usually inaccessible to folks with lived experience for a number of reasons. And so my role as the director of programming is to make sure that we are deepening the leadership of those that have been affected by systemic racism and poverty, extractive economies. And so we strive to provide low barrier leadership development opportunities. These include education, advocacy, skill building, networks, and access to resources. Just really giving folks, solutions and tools that they can use, and the education that they can use to meet people where they are. And again, this is just my role as the program director. We also have Bessie, who is our policy director, who works on policy and legislation. And so one of the ways, we do a lot, but our primary focus this year, we had, an amazing opportunity. And so one of the ways that we're deepening the leadership of folks with lived experience is through our Advocates and Residents program. And so that is a youth program for youth transitioning out of incarceration, Department of Corrections, houselessness. And what we're doing is creating a space for marginalized youth to become leaders and advocates and community builders. And we're helping them, we're giving them the tools to leverage their lived experience to create this transformation. Because again, it's really important that solutions come from frontline communities. And so this program, it's, we were lucky in the sense that we are able to not just help them articulate their story, but we're also able to bring like healing justice practices and mix those in with skill building and equity-based problem solving to these youth. So it's good that we can, teach them like in a classroom type setting, but they also get to, we're here for them when they come home, and we help them with that healing process as well. And, it's becoming this vehicle for dismantling oppressive systems. It's, we're doing a lot with, the university and the libraries, and teaching them how to articulate their stories to create that system level change. And so in addition to that, we also focus on shifting the narrative, building partnerships with also people who serve frontline communities. Like myself, my background's entrepreneurship, but prior to, right after I transitioned careers, I transitioned into social work, and before I became the director, co-director for the Alaska Poor People's Campaign. So it's just building these networks, not just our frontline communities, but also people who support folks on frontline communities to help advocate for the needs of the folks that they serve is also important. So I think our role and where I would like to focus, right? Because there's a whole lot of things that we can do, and I'm just going to focus on, you know, what I can do, and that's providing tangible solutions. Well, something I strive to do is, you know, innovative, tangible solutions to folks who are affected by these injustices, but also, you know, helping to create that transformative change by helping change trajectories of individuals with lived experience. So hopefully that kind of sums up what I would like to see Poor People's Campaign do locally at the state level with the Thrive agenda.
Thanks so much, Justina. This is the work of Just Transition, and your work is so amazing, and it's great to hear what you're doing with just encouraging and fostering leadership, lived experience leadership. That's just really inspiring. So thank you.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Next, I'd like to give the floor to Ryan Hall from the Alaska Workers Association, which is a 100% volunteer organization that aims to end poverty in Alaska. And I'm really excited to hear about the work of the Alaska Workers Association. Ryan, thank you so much. And I see you have someone there with you that I don't know. So please welcome to both of you.
Yes. Introduction. So I'm Ryan Hall. I'm the operations manager for Alaska Workers Association. With me, I have Kristen Liu as our administrative assistant. And then also joining us from our membership is Stacy Clark over here on the right. She's my right, stage left. Joined us here while we were sitting down. So I'd like to just start by introducing who Alaska Workers Association is. You got it. First off, thank you for inviting us for this fireside chat today, and the organization's hosting it. We're very glad to be here. And to begin with, Alaska Workers Association, we're an independent, all-volunteer membership organization of low-income workers, specifically those excluded from the national labor laws that protect workers' right to fight for better pay and working conditions. Specifically, if our members, say, try to form a union and they get fired in the process, they have no recourse to file an unfair labor practice. Here in Alaska, that includes a lot of domestic workers and employees of independent contractors. So right, our members work in home care, fish processing, on contract jobs. They do part-time work in retail, hotels and tourism, driving taxis and other low-paid service and seasonal work, and seldom earn enough in any month to pay for necessities, or at least all their necessities: food, clothing, utilities, rent, medical care. Many of our members struggle to find work at all, because even before the pandemic, the labor participation rate was 48% in Alaska. And the last year has put thousands of Alaskans months behind on rent and utilities. So we operate on the understanding that the people who are facing the problems of poverty directly know better than anybody what they need as a solution to the problem. Our members participate in the work to build the organization, and the issues we take on as an organization are decided by our membership through our Workers Benefit Council. That's a weekly meeting of our membership. Our membership run free of charge benefit program includes emergency food, clothing, legal advice from volunteer attorneys. We have preventive medical care from volunteer doctors. The benefit program is not a solution. It's getting a box of food to one person, or even many people, doesn't even touch the 100,000 jobs we last year. Despite the moratoriums, we've been continuously fighting evictions and utility shutoffs. And the benefit program is really there to remove the material obstacles our members have to participating in the work that we do. We operate, as I said, 100% volunteer, and we accept no government funding or funding with strings attached. So we meet our members by canvassing door to door in the neighborhoods they live in the poorest neighborhoods in Anchorage. And AWA has maintained this canvas campaign as a continuous pursuit every week for 20 years now. Members have immediate access to the benefit program when they sign up. Our membership is open to everybody, regardless of income, race, religion, age, ability, legal status. And by signing up as a member, members have immediate ability to attend our weekly membership meetings. Members participate in the work to build the benefit program and bringing the benefit of organization to other members by joining the canvases, helping call other members about activities that we have going on, our clothing distributions, our medical sessions, legal sessions, helping arrange logistics for these activities by calling a driver to help get a member in if they don't have the transportation, or if they have a car, they can help drive a person, as well as organizing the resources by recruiting business owners, churches and professionals and others in the community to provide them. In this way, our members become leaders in their own organization. We build a strong base that unites the entire community.
Just a comment.
One of the, comment, Marvin was talking about a lot of things. We have some overlap in terms of some of the conditions for our members as well. Poverty is always an isolating experience because in this country, it's a very individualized phenomenon. Despite the fact that it affects tens of millions of people, it's always treated, as the individual person's fault. And so by building organization, by coming into the organization and participating with other people who are facing the problem, people begin to learn through experience materially that they're not alone. That not only are there thousands other just in the community we're in Mountain View with the exact same problem, but that there are at least as many people who are willing to work toward a solution for that. So, thank you.
Wow, thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate it. And the work of the Alaska Workers Association is so critical. And I just hope through these conversations that we can find ways to not only unite, but to support each other's work. And, there is some overlap, but there's a lot that we can do collectively to really help each other out. So really appreciate what you're doing there. And next, I'd like to offer Joelle Hall an opportunity with AFL-CIO. And I just noted that AFL-CIO envisions a future in which work and all people who work are valued, respected, and rewarded. So Joelle, welcome and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate being invited. And I am not related to Ryan, but he, coincidentally, we have the same name, but obviously a fellow traveler. I'm happy to be here tonight. The Alaska AFL-CIO, at the risk of sounding like, that old expression, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Guilty. To this hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the nail is people need to have the power to organize, to form a union, to build power themselves, to be able to negotiate with their employer for fair wages, safe work conditions, and dignity on the job. I'm not going to lie. If I had my business, my druthers, I'd put Ryan plumb out of business because we would have nobody who wasn't covered by the National Labor Relations Act. Everybody would have the power to organize in their workplace. And we would have a growing, thriving labor movement of all different kinds of workers that are allowed to I'm thinking about what Marvin was saying, and I got a shout out to my brother, Marvin. Marvin is an amazing labor leader who has been leading a local through probably one of the toughest runs of any one of our locals in the last 10 years, you know, combating, it's the story of the labor movement. Giant corporation comes into your town, buys up a property that had been run honorably by good people who are local, comes in, tries to break the union and run out all the workers who worked there, who had been having a living wage and a good job. And some international company comes in and tries to break up their deal. And he has been fighting like crazy for 10 years. And then he gets a pandemic. The labor movement is filled with stories like this. And we run the gamut just so that folks understand. Alaska is the third highest union density state in the country. We have that going for us, right? We have about 23% density. And what that means is every fourth house is the house of a union member in this state, right? And those union members can be a public employee, they could be a school teacher, they could work for a hotel, and they could be in the public sector, a public employee, a government servant of some kind. They could be in the private sector. They could be an electrician. They could be an operating engineer. They could work in a hotel, or they could work in a grocery store. And we run the gamut of those types of services. But Ryan makes a really good point, which is there's a whole set of workers we don't have yet access to because they're not covered by the National Labor Relations Act. Now we're back to Joelle and her nail problem. The reason why we don't have access to those workers is because when the Wagner Act was passed in 1935, we were kind of able to organize the gamut of workers, right? And I want to be really clear that when the Wagner Act passed in 1935, the AFL and the CIO were different things. One was the union of white people, and one was organizing unions of Black people. And when we got married, they passed right to work so that the states where they didn't want that integration to happen, they could vote out of there, they could recede from their union. Right to work is fundamentally at its basis a racist Jim Crow leftover. And it stems from the marriage we made so many years ago and ahead of so many different, so the labor movement has always been a civil rights movement, and this joining kind of set in motion the things that would change about the Wagner Act. First being right to work, and then corporations slowly figuring out how to chip away at the rules that allow you to organize in a workplace, making it harder and harder and harder to organize, tilting that playing field so that if you fire somebody during an organizing drive, Ryan talked about that, the ramifications for an employer who does that, they're nothing. It's pennies on the dollar to fire a worker. Meanwhile, you've saved millions of dollars in the wages that you would have been required to share with the people who make the wealth for you, right? So this is the power to organize, is the power to do all of these things. And from 1935 till today, there's been a systemic, intentional erosion of the laws that allow us to organize workers. So we've talked about a lot today, and we are in a transition of workforces, right? Right now, the resource extraction economy is highly compensated and often highly unionized, right? The economies that we want to go to right now tend to be minimum wage work and not a lot of structure in there because they aren't yet organized workforces. We have to change this law that's in the middle if we want that transition to be fully formed. Because in order to have safe workplaces where you have justice for workers, both in their safety and in compensation, and they have benefits, and you have some dignity on the job. And when Marvin talks about the way that the Hilton is allowed to behave, that is a union hotel. Imagine what it's like when it's not, right? Sunlight. The union can come together, band together with one voice on behalf of the workers and say, you can't treat us like this. You must remedy problem X. We have a tool at our disposal which will compel you to solve problem X. We can strike, we can do all kinds of things. We can't, if you're not subject to the National Labor Relations Act and you're not subject to being organizing, that is part of the big problem that we're going to have in this just transition. I think some of the folks on this call understand that we are also at a moment in our time, in our history, where we have a chance to fix this for the first time in a very long time. And it is the PRO Act, the Protect the Right to Organize Act. Several of you have been at our rallies. We're in a moment right now. This is the week of action. We're pressuring Lisa Murkowski. We have 40 something Democrats. She could be the one Republican that comes over and helps us pass this really pivotal thing that allows us to make sure that the independent contractor who's doing independent contract stuff legitimately, that's what they want to do, and they're doing it legally. They're not being forced to do it by an unscrupulous employer who told them to go out and get a business license to self-perform to their detriment and to deny them workers' comp and unemployment insurance. We're in a moment right now, this instant, where the nail's going to get the hammer, right? We're in the movement right now to change this. Then it's tons and tons and tons and tons of work, right? Then it's organizing all of these people. Then it's writing regulations. Then it's trying to figure out, how do you organize home healthcare workers? They're not, the NLRA says they need to be in a workplace. Well, what if it's 14 workplaces or 100 workplaces in individual homes, right? These are all impediments to organizing those people. And the systems that exploit those workers, they like those impediments. So we have a tool. We're about to be able to, I was just on a call with President Trumka earlier today talking about how this is going to affect independent contractors. And it was freelancers, freelance writers, freelance musicians, people who are just losing what was once traditional jobs, being forced to freelance and then exploited, being asked to sign away not only their work, but every future right to their work, their copyright. I mean, the sheer gall and the cheek on people who are trying to exploit workers every place in the economy. I realize I'm a hammer, but we have a nail, and the nail has the power to help us transition. It won't help everybody, and it won't always be the most efficient thing, but we can help a lot of people. The Alaska Labor Movement works on behalf, of course, our organized members and people who do those, but we work in the legislature and in the city governments and in the federal government to help those who are unrepresented as well. Those whose only prayer is the Department of Labor steps in to help them. That's if that is your fallback machine, you got problems, right? So we need to empower the Department of Labor. We need to have stronger minimum wages. We need to make sure that people cannot be opted out of workers' comp and unemployment insurance so that when the worst thing happens, they have some system that we all should have to fall back on. So I'm excited about the idea of what we were transitioning to, because there's so many jobs that are good. In Butte, Montana, in addition to being a Superfund site full of all kinds of toxic crap in the ground from an industry that is faded and gone, there's a giant brick building on the side of which is printed the Sheep Shearers Union. In Butte, Montana, back in the day, there was a union of sheep shearers. Unions evolve, unions change, work changes, people change. We're in one of those transitional times from sheep shearing to whatever's coming next, right? Being in a union, the power of one voice, the power of standing together to negotiate the safe working conditions, the wages, the benefits, and the dignity on the job that you all have talked about. We simply will not get there with one voice. If you don't have a collective voice, you and I all know that we're howling into the wind. So I urge folks to help us pass the PRO Act. Then let's work together as we try to transition these economies and make sure, because otherwise we're just relying on the benevolence of people who historically have been not too benevolent. These are the systems we've been talking about. Systems only respond to other power, and we got to get that power in the hands of working people. So the hammer's done talking, and I appreciate your time, but I hope you'll join us. We got to send Lisa Murkowski a little note, would you? Tell her you think this is important. Let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Joelle, thank you so much.
You got it.
Yes, I was just going to ask how we can best support the PRO Act. So that's a really good thing that we can all do. And I thought it was really interesting what you were saying, that many people in the extractive industries are unionized, but low-wage workers are not. So I guess one of the things we're all trying to do, I think, is eliminate those disparities. And I think that's what really all of you spoke about, Marvin, Justina, Ryan, and Joelle. So again, thank you all so much. I really appreciate your perspectives and your experience and the history and the work that you're doing really toward a just transition. And it's all really, really important for us to know. I do see that Terry posted something in the chat here. There's a question that I think maybe can be directed to all of you. It seems important that the Thrive Act address the needs of people in informal economies. Throughout the country, single moms often have to choose between caring for their families, taking a job. Will the Thrive agenda address the needs of these people? With respect to Alaska, subsistence hunters, fishers, and gatherers are critical to village economies, but are invisible to traditional economic considerations. These subsistence participants are crucial cultural bearers and supporters of indigenous cultures. Will people like these become considered by the federal Thrive agenda? It seems an important perspective. So I'd like to just open up the floor, whoever would like to address that, maybe Ruth or any of our invited experts, if you'd like to share your thoughts about that with us. Some good points for sure, Terry. Thank you for that.
Of course.
I don't want to, I've just been glowing, and so I feel like I'm bouncing up and down listening to all these incredible thought leaders, and I'm so just humbled to have the chance to listen to all of you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your leadership with us. Terry, to think on this, so much of just transition is redefining our economy entirely. It's remembering forward, Gwitch'in, which we began to say years ago when thinking of just transition, beginning to shift our thought of what is validated as work away from just what produces money and what produces profit, often for the elite few, and to begin to validate work and labor in ways that create community wellness and create community health. And create safe environments and education for our youth. And so I am so right there with you that so much of what we are reconsidering in a regenerative economy and what we will be building towards through this act and through many, many more iterations of the progress we hope to realize has to be validating care economies, has to be validating reproductive labor and the labors that so often go unhonored and unvalidated and unpaid. And so that is the core of, I think, what Just Transition hopes to achieve, shifting work away from this extractive premise where we should have to work to live, work to be able to have a house, work to be able to eat food, work to be able to drink water, and instead think about how work can contribute to a thriving economy without a scarcity model, wherein there is fear that any of those pieces would possibly be kept away from someone. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that has to be a crucial part of any type of liberatory work that we do.
Thank you, Ruth. Any other thoughts from anyone? The floor is open to all of you, and really this is a conversation, so please just welcome anybody's thoughts or perspectives on this question or other thoughts or ideas you might have.
I want to just say something about in the chat. Ruth put just I have one little thing to add about the pensions thing. So in the CARES Act, no, HEROES Act. In the HEROES Act that passed Congress and the president signed, there was a shoring up of existing pension systems till 2050, I believe. But I want to be really clear, that's just existing pension systems. And the way the world is designed right now, precious few people get a pension. And that is one of the things that needs to be rectified through the power bargaining, because it is not more cost. It is not in the interest of most people to be stuffed into a 401k, a defined contribution system. A pension system is way better to ensuring a lifelong and a secure retirement in old age. So existing systems are somewhat protected as a result of this president and this legislature. But you are right. The key to this the funding of pensions is we're going to have to re-engineer this as the preferred method to protecting retirement security. There's too few of us who still have a pension in this world. It's just not right, right? It is a systemic robbery of one generation, and to the benefit of a previous one, to be perfectly honest. And we need to fix that. So that is just one of the areas that we spend a lot of time talking about in my world, in terms of talking to lawmakers about it, Social Security. There's ways we can do it. And to Ruth's point, talking about scarcity all the time, Social Security, what they do to Social Security, making it, they short fund it, they borrow money from it, they're stealing from our children when they do that. And then they don't fund it. They they cap wages so that rich people who make over $200,000 a year, they quit paying into Social Security. After you make $170,000, you don't contribute anymore. If they just removed the cap, we would have no funding problems at all with Social Security. So there's all these little tricks inside the book. Social Security, there's no reason why it couldn't be a completely viable pension system for the majority of American workers, right? No reason why. It's a choice. And they've got us playing the stock market instead. Just wanted to add one little good piece of news. It's good for some people, at least for people who existing have a pension. But yes, this is something we must fight for all the time. Because defined contributions, we're going to end up with a generation of people who are on assistance because they just were never able to save enough money. And don't get started about what it's going to do to the people on this call who are under 50, who have student debt beyond anything that's moral in any way, shape, or form, and now they have to save all of their retirement. It's criminal what we're doing to people. It's criminal what this generation is being asked to bear. I get really excited about this because I look at my kids and I think, you've got all the blessings in the world, and I still pray to God you're going to make it. You know what I mean? But not everybody does. It's just not right. This generation's getting screwed. Pardon my French, but they are.
Thank you, Joelle. We're going to fix all of this.
Yeah. Makes me so mad.
I want to give Marvin, Justina, Ryan an opportunity to share any last thoughts. It's amazing that we're at the top of the hour. We can go a little bit over if people would like, because this has been such a wonderful conversation. But and any thoughts from the three of you?
I'd just like to fit in one last thing. As we said, we've been here 20 years. We operate 365 days a year, and we've been building an entirely voluntary base of committed people concerned about the conditions of the lowest paid workers. We've done it without the support of those who are benefiting from the destructive conditions of poverty or government who protects those interests. And we really, we need volunteers to make this happen. We invite each and every one of you to join us as individuals, bring a group from your organization to join us on one of our canvases. Give us a call or put your contact in the chat and we can give you a call. Our phone numbers, we'll put that in the chat. That's what I got.
We can't leave anybody behind. Okay, That's great. I heard a voice out there.
That's Barbara coaching me in the corner there.
Yeah, thank you.
Better over the years, yeah.
Just saying, we cannot leave anybody behind because every time the floor drops, people drop below it. We have to build a floor below which nobody falls.
Here, here. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all at the Alaska Workers Association. And I know that I'm going to get a group of people from ACAT together to come over and help. So really, really appreciate all the work you do. Marvin, Justina, any other thoughts or ideas from either of you?
You know, for me, I'm just appreciative that, you know, everybody come together. So many points that have been hit that just, I'm speechless because everyone is on point. And Joelle, she just took all the wind out. I mean, I have nothing else to say because she hit all the points. But, you know, I've been in this industry for 33 years. And I often say that it chose me, I didn't choose it. And one of the most thankful things I am about this is that, you know, we strive to make other people's lives better. We give them a voice. And what, you know, some things that Joel touched on is if we do not push back, if we just roll over, I mean, just how many lives will be affected? We owe those who made this possible for us. So many people have sacrificed for us, whether it was the civil rights movement, you name it. I owe so many people, and that's why I get my inspiration to get up and fight management every single day, because I know what would happen if, as Joel said earlier, if this is a hotel that has a collective bargaining agreement that protect workers, what do you think is happening in one that has no agreement at all? So this group coming together, sharing ideas, hoping that, you know, we can make things better. This is what we do. We fight, and we continue to do that. So I appreciate everyone in this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Justina.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I appreciate all everybody for being here, and I learned a lot about the unions and what some of you all are doing. So it was very eye-opening. Yeah, I think so. I'm new to like learning about the Thrive agenda, but it's just nice to see what y'all are doing in the community, and then, you know, if there's a way that we can support, and like I tell folks in the community, you know, we've got, you know, youth here that are here to support. I think someone asked for volunteers. A lot, you know, 75% of our residents are currently employed, and a lot of them have actually had conversations about how to improve the work environment. So yeah, if there's opportunities for partnership or anything like that, or areas that they can volunteer or anything like that, we're definitely open. So.
Thank you so much, Justina. And as we're wrapping up here, I want to make sure that anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak, please offer any thoughts or questions or anything that you might want to share before we close. If not, if you just want to be quiet, that's okay. But certainly welcome you to speak out if you'd like to. Okay, well, we'll still have a chance before we close. I do have a couple of quick announcements that are, I think, relevant to our collective work. One is that there will be a nurses caravan rally Thursday. That's this Thursday, April 29th at noon. And Joelle, you may want to say something more about this. AFL-CIO is sponsoring this rally as the nurses at Providence Medical Center are in active negotiations for better working conditions. So that's one thing that we can all do together. That's noon this Thursday. And the second thing is that there will be a hearing on HB 186, which is a disclosure of wage information, a hearing on Wednesday, April 28th, tomorrow at 3:15. And this is sponsored by Representative Liz Snyder. And they're seeking business owners and other employers to testify in support of this bill. So those were just a couple of things labor related that I wanted to note. And Joelle, if you want to say anything more about the rally, please do.
So in addition to our yes, our nurses in Providence are in active negotiations. This is a difficult group to do business with, Providence, the Providence behemoth. So we're going to do a caravan drive around. We're going to meet in a parking lot at the back of the Alaska Airlines Center, just drive around, honk. Additionally, I just want to make sure you all know that tomorrow at noon, tomorrow is Workers' Memorial Day. Worker Memorial Day is the day we recognize people who have lost their life at work every year. Alaska is one of the deadliest places to work on the planet. Actually, that's an overstatement, probably just America. I'm sure there's way more dangerous places in the world to work. And we're going to have an event tomorrow at the Firefighter Memorial at the corner of 5th and A at noon. The mayor will be there. We will have some speakers from the nurse units, as well as our grocery store unit, talking about some of the workers that historically would not have been on our death on the jobs list. You wouldn't have expected a Safeway worker to be on that list. But this year, they've put their bodies in service of our need to eat at the peril of their own health. And we are going to talk about those folks and the sacrifice that they've made tomorrow at Worker Memorial Day celebration, 5th and A at noon. We are going to also live stream that. So if you can't be there, but you want to watch noon tomorrow on the Alaska AFL-CIO Facebook page, we'll live stream it. This is a week of action, like I said, on the PRO Act. So it's a busy time. And Saturday is May Day. I think DSA, Democratic Socialists, are having some big actions. We're having a labor walk. Please vote your ballots and get them turned in. You can do that by May 11th. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, the nurses could use our help. And then tomorrow is a solemn day where we recognize the people who have been asked to make the ultimate sacrifice when they went to work that day. So thanks if you want to turn out, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know, Joelle. Really appreciate that. I really love this conversation. This is so great. And thank you to everyone for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your leadership. Joelle, Ryan, Justina, and Marvin, really, really much appreciated. I'm so grateful to all of you. And I hope that we can continue to work together to achieve the justice and to achieve the healthy and safe working conditions and just compensation and dignity that all workers deserve. So again, really appreciate it. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation. And I do want to also highlight that we have a couple of fireside chats coming up here, one on Thursday. Let me get my little cheat sheet here. Thursday, again from 5 to 6. This is the pillar focusing on reinvesting in public institutions that enable workers and communities to thrive. It's the same Zoom link that you joined with this evening. And then on Tuesday, May 4th, the final of our fireside chats, but I'm sure we'll have many other opportunities for conversation. And that one is creating millions of good, safe jobs with access to unions. So, and building power of workers to fight inequality. So all of these obviously are interconnected. So hoping that you can join these conversations as well. And again, just my gratitude to everyone. Thank you. And let's continue to work for all of the things that we care about and the people that we love. So thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.
Hope to see you all next week. Thank you all so much. Chicken and curry. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everybody.